Hi, welcome in everybody. Welcome, welcome. You are here today for our Facebook Live session on Nexus Letters. My name is JL Kalia, Coach JL Kalia with VA Claims Insider, and I'm going to be here partnering with my veteran coach friend, Jeff Rogers. Today we're going to join you and go over all that you could possibly know or want to know about Nexus Letters and what they're going to do for you. So, hey, Jeff, introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about you.
Well, thank you very much for being here with me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, I guess, if we're going to close the Truman Show. Good morning or good afternoon to everybody. Jeff Rogers, been here, VA Claims Insider, a couple of years, going on 3.5, I believe. And Marine Corps veteran, 4 years active duty, and just recently finished last year my 15th year reserves. I'm done. But I did my time. 100% permanent total veteran. And I love every day to get to serve each and every one of my veterans. And hopefully you. So I'll be here for the duration with Coach Jael, and I look forward to this each and every day. So next is
Sounds good. Sounds good. So happy Wednesday, veterans. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Before we really get started with today's topic, sound off in the comments. Let us know where you're from, where you're tuning in from, maybe your branch of service, and how many years you served. That'll help us to get to know you a little bit virtually. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself as well. Don't see anybody coming in on the comments yet. So, but welcome in. Please introduce yourself. And again, my name is Coach, and I am not a veteran. I come to you from the love of my brother, who was involved in intelligence work during the Gulf War. He passed on a couple of years ago, and in coming to VA Claims Insider and learning all about the education products and the support that those education products provide our veterans, I think my life with my brother might have been a lot better. So I am dedicated to this entire process and working with the veterans and coming forward and making sure that you guys are getting the best education strategy that you could possibly know about. And today we're going to talk about one of the things that's part of our SEM, which is that medical evidence. My background is actually in insurance claims. I was also a financial manager and an education director for a couple of different companies. And the thing that really brought me to VA Claims Insider was a recruiting agency, believe it or not. I had a friend that worked here, and he was part of a recruiting effort and said, "Hey, I think this is the perfect fit for you." And sure enough, haven't left, haven't wanted to leave, and I will stay maybe until the day I fall asleep at my desk, and that would be that. So I wanted to just kind of come in and let's welcome some of our veterans in. Jeff, can you
no,
see those names? Awesome. We've got Emmanuel he's a USMC from 89 to 01. We've got Annie, United States Navy for 6 years active duty and 4 years reserve. Awesome. 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 Stephen Shy, thank you so much for joining us. Served with U.S. Air Force. And we've got Roger Fregas, Desert Storm vet here. Thank you so much. Destin Crawford, USMC from 05 to from 00 to 05. Go ahead, Jeff.
no Semper Fi. All my
Semper
Marines.
Fi.
Semper Fi.
All right. Good morning from San Diego, too. I love that. Grace Smith, 20 years. That's a lifetime with the United States Navy. Thank you so much. Joe, joining us from the Air Force. He served from 96 to 2008 in multiple operations, he says. And let me go ahead and scroll down here a little bit so I could
Yep.
see.
We have Frank Jefferson, United States Navy. So to all my Marine Corps veterans, Semper Fi, of course, to Navy, Semper Fortis, Coast Guard if you're here, right? Semper Paratus. Air Force, I think it's aim high from what I remember. Well, who we got? Cecilio. There you go. I like that. U.S. Army from Cali, I reckon. I love California for sure. All right. Well, welcome to you all. Welcome to you all for being here. Thank you, Coach Jael, for being with me as well. Start to begin.
Happy to be here. Absolutely happy to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little about our VA Claims Insider Elite program. I want to say a disclaimer. We are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA, and we are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coaching and consulting company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted independent medical professionals in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions, IMOs, and a wide range of disability conditions. What we do, we provide strategy, education, and medical evidence. One on one coaching. So, if you're here today and you want to sign up for our elite program, you can sign up with Coach Jeff Rogers or myself, JL Khalil. Our links will be flashed across the screen occasionally. So, pick one of those up if you want to see what we're all about. We also provide in that one on one coaching, you're going to be looking at a strategy session, looking at the claims submission process, the CMP education. And we want to also make sure that in providing live education classes like this one through Zoom, we do that 3 times a day. We also have in the morning coffee with the coaches every day at 8 a.m. Central Time. We do provide some mental health exam education classes as well, and medical exam education classes to really make sure that as you go into those compensation and pension exams that you know what to expect when you come out of it. Hey, if you'd like to have a discovery call, want to learn more about this whole process, you can schedule a free discovery call and talk to one of our team members by going to vaclaims.help. And if you need help, reach out to our organization at vaclaimsinsider.com. We would love to partner with you on our VA Claims Insider journey. So, Jeff, take it away from here. What are we going to be talking about today?
A perfect topic. One of the individuals, I think, I'm going to start off this way. It says, Shira Hunter, why do you need a Nexus letter or PACT Act claims when it's already established that injuries are presumptive for surgery in those areas listed? We're going to cover that. We're going to possibly cover that during this portion or this period of instruction, as we used to say in the Marine Corps. But we're going to jump off from the place that you said, right? Disclaimer. You said we vetted independent medical professionals. Well, I think that's a perfect place to start.
I agree.
PPN, Preferred Provider Network. I'm not trying to economize you all, but that's just the language that we like to do in the military, right? Like if you understand what I mean, if you are and you have been connected to the military, and that word connected, I'm going to switch it a little bit, like you said, Nexus. So Telemedic, I want to start with them. They're in our Preferred Provider Network. What do they mean? If you come to us and you're saying, Coach Jeff or Coach Jael, this is what I need. This is what I want my strategy, education, medical evidence. If you have a gap in your information from the Marine Corps, that's what we call services gaps. That gap, you possibly need the Nexus. All right. What is a Nexus letter? Some people like, well, I served. I didn't go to the doctor. I've heard it all. I've even said it because I've been a part of that. God rest your brother's soul. He's fighting in Valhalla now. I know that. I'll say some prayers later for his memory. But I'm pretty sure when he was too, he just didn't talk about a lot of the stuff that he was going through, right, Coach Jim? That's just what we do.
Exactly.
But not now. Now a Nexus letter. What is that? A Nexus letter is an evidence-based document. Okay. I was a cop for about 5 years, so I love evidence. And remember the C method. Strategy, education, medical evidence. This medical evidence-based document, it's an advisory type opinion, okay, prepared by a private medical professional that helps to establish a link or connection. Okay, it can't be John or Jim off the street. It has to be that credentialized individual, right? Doctor, physician assistant, what's the other, nurse practitioner, depending on the credentials, right? So they're going to establish a link or the connection, nexus, between the veteran's current disability, right? If you have a current disability percentage at 10, 20, whatever, even at 0%, right? And their active duty military service. A Nexus letter can also be used to establish secondary service connection and service connection via aggravation. So those two separate, right? I'll open up myself. I have mental health secondary to my other service-connected conditions, what we here at VA Claims Insider call a lifestyle impact claim. How does your current service-connected condition bother your occupational? I think the Chapter 30 ACFR says occupational social impairment. Social impairment. How does your back? How does if you've got these things, how do they affect you? You may you may need one of these letters. And I go back to service connection via aggravation. If you have a nexus, or if you have an already service connected condition and it has gotten worse, right, then that might be the need of it. So, as all of us, and Jael, I know you can say this each and every day, that I know when I was in the Marine Corps, it was situation dependent. Now, on this job is veteran dependent. Not of them, not all of the letters are going to be created equal. Okay. Why is that? It's because of they're not always created equal, or they're going to offer that equal weight by the VA. Now, some have more. Are you ready for this big word? I had to look it up. Yes, I did. True story. Big word. Probative value. Probative value. Let's kind of get into what that is. I'm going to read it here on an M21. It says probative value makes a material matter to the determination more or less likely and has sufficient weight either by itself or in combination, with other evidence to persuade the decision maker about that fact. That's huge, because it's like, hey, my stuff's gotten worse. Put it on paper, sign it, date it. That's not going to cut it here. It has to be factual, right? It has to be on paper what's gotten worse or how is it service connected. So VA Nexus Letter is not required, right? Kind of mentioning Cheryl's, she might have the instance. The Nexus is not required in that presumptive, right? If you have a current diagnosis and you served in one of those areas that is covered by the PACT Act, that is a specific case, and we can answer that question at the end for sure. But in this case, a VA Nexus Letter is not always required, and including one with your VA claim doesn't always guarantee a service connection. Guess what? I'm raising my hand right now. I supplied a Nexus Letter back in, I think, 2018. Slap down, denied.
Yep.
Can you believe that, Coach Sham?
Absolutely. It's shocking, but it does happen. And there's always a resolution.
Good. I think that it is. There is a resolution for that, because if you get a denial, right? If you've been denied, or if you've never been denied before, this is the part of the process you may need, right? The Nexus Letter. That's fantastic. I appreciate you here. There are some specific instances, like you said, that you are going to need those letters, right, from a private healthcare provider. I'm going to let you know, you as a veteran cannot write a Nexus Letter. I mean, you probably can fill something out, but it's not going to have weight. You cannot submit one. It has to be one from a private healthcare provider. Should you get one? Let's answer some of those questions on maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I know when I have individuals start the VA process, I just started I just submitted my claim 2 months ago. I don't have a Nexus Letter. I might need to utilize the services of the Preferred Provider Network, Telemedica. All right. It can be submitted at any time during that process. Okay. However, it is recommended that veterans do that prior to the claim submission, right? Have all your ducks in a row. Have your junk on the bunk. If you like to read books like I do, have your index, have your organization ready to go. Either after that initial claim, increase claim, an increase or an aggravation claim. Or if you've been denied and it's a supplemental, or if you go the other route, which we don't do anything with, is that Board of Veterans Appeals route, right? So let's take a look here just really quickly at some tests. I would say a litmus test here. I'm not going to say a field sobriety. That's what I used to say as a cop. So here's the litmus test. If your disability, this is going to go back to kind of what Cheryl was asking. Great question to start off, honestly. That's why I love my veterans, our veterans. If your disability was diagnosed during service and it's in your military treatment record or your STR service treatment record, you probably do not need a Nexus Letter. Why? Because you have medical evidence that the disability existed during your service. Okay? However, Nexus Letters can provide more weight if need be. But in this case, we're going to go in the service treatment record. If your disability was not diagnosed during the service, or if there are if there are no documented symptoms in your medical records, you're probably going to need a record. And that a majority of the veterans that I talk with, and when I say majority, I'll even throw out a number, and this is too big, especially for me being a Marine. Like a lot of my individuals need it, right? Probably 90% more. I don't know. I'm just so I would say if you're here, you're here for a reason. Hey, let us be with that, be a part of that process, part of that, the phase step process, the steam. All right, here we go. If you're attempting, are you ready for this one? If you're attempting to service connect a previously denied, can you hear me? Sorry. There it is. If you are attempting to service connect a previously denied VA claim or trying to file a secondary service connection, a Nexus is highly recommended.
Absolutely.
My tinnitus, my hearing, or in my case, my back, I just had back surgery on this, and my back, how about that one? I'm 20% for my back. If I would have went to the doctor and said my back is hurting me, I can't sleep, I wrote you a letter. That is good because it shows I have a primary condition, I'm having an issue, but we're missing the pieces. So it's highly recommended to get in there because you need to have that powerful VA argument. You got to have your ducks in a row. You have to have that argument to overcome that previous. Well, I submitted for PTSD before. However, I'm submitting a lifestyle impact claim, right? My depression, anxiety is secondary to my back. So this is where, in this case, Preferred Provider Network, Telemedica, right? You're doing that lifestyle impact claim. That's where the weight is going to come into. And here's a huge piece of it if you're ready. Jael, I know you've seen these. We're going to get into speaking about some numbers, probative value type stuff. It has to be aggravated by current service connected condition and proximately due, right? How many times do you think, how many times have you had a veteran come to you and say, I've already submitted it, but it was denied because of I didn't have a Nexus?
Many, 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 innumerable times. And that really is part of our preferred providers services, is to really help you guys use those Nexus letters to their best advantage.
Perfect. Now, I'm going to get into something, and I like this part of it, is because it's collaborative between you and I. Before you came here, you dabbled, right? You had some other professional capacities, and so did I. And mine was evidence. It dealt with medical care, evidence stuff, all that stuff. But I know with the Nexus letter, what do you think? Are they thoroughly researched, or are they just put on paper? What do you think?
They are put on paper, definitely. However, some of the best benefit with providing in getting that Nexus letter is it also provides you with the background or the evidential support that your claim needs to support why that is connected. So the Nexus letter should also entail, here's connection A to, or here's connection B to disability A. And then there's support provided in those Nexus letters that says, here's the documented medical professional's opinion outside of our own that will support this directive that we're trying to connect right now. So in supporting that, your migraines to whatever you want to support it to, in that Nexus letter, it also needs to include medical documentation on previous successes in that through medical journals, medical evidence to support it. And those documents will be included in that Nexus letter.
I love it. It's not just, it's a doctor. They're going to do their research. They're going to go through and do the due diligence. Sorry, there's two. They will do their due diligence in order to establish, and that statement, I read a statement, here's a statement, and I'm going to throw you the ball to the next portion. And I love this because this set it in mind when I had my service connection for my mental health secondary to my service connection, my primary service connected conditions. And it says here, the best Nexus letters include a statement with words is at least as likely as not. We'll kind of get into a little bit later about those levels a little bit later. Assuming that the independent medical provider believes that the veteran's condition is caused or aggravated by his or her active duty or their military service, right? So, perfect set for that.
So I'm going to go ahead and take it away from you, Jeff, for a little while. Thank you so much. That was an immense amount of information, and the presentation was impeccable. So thank you so much for presenting that that education to all of us so that we can really get down and understand. I see there's a lot more questions in the comments area, and we're going to get to those in just a little while. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how does the RVSR determine probative value of a Nexus letter. Now, let's go back just a minute here and talk about what is an RVSR. So an RSVR is a Rating Veterans Service Representative. They usually work in the Veterans Service Center. They might work at different places in the pension management. What they do is analyze claims, and they apply the VA schedule for disability ratings, that 38 CFR that you hear in all of our classes as you attend, and prepare those rating decisions, informing the VSRs and claimants for the decisions and reasons behind them. So that Nexus letter has probative value if it makes a matter material to the determination more or less likely and has that sufficient weight. So what does that mean? That sufficient weight line is at 50% or more. It's not at 51%, it's at 50%. So the VA is actually giving you 1% more. So if it's a 50% draw in that determination will go to the veteran's side. And that's one of the things that Nexus letter really does help make sufficient conversation about in your evaluation of your claim. Does it provide sufficient evidence, sufficient weight to make that determination that's more or less, more likely than less, to be in your favor, at least 50%. And then in determining that probative value of evidence, and we're talking evidence, factors such as competency and credibility, thoroughness, precision, relevancy, as well as the date of the evidence and those important, they're all part of that important consideration. So when the VA is looking at a Nexus letter, they're looking at all of those things as well. Is there probative value? Is there a competent signature? Is there a competent representative providing this document? Is it credible? Is it thorough? Does it have precision? Does it make that precise statement that without doubt, yeah, we do believe that this veteran's connection is 50% or more in that veteran's favor, and make that connection. The evidence that is credible, not believable, does have probative value and is not weighed against probative evidence in determining in the facts that are proven. So the evidence from a source that is not competent to establish a fact does not have probative value on that fact. So what does that mean? It means that if the documentation that you're providing is based on hearsay or a blog or something else that is presented to the VA, they're going to say that is not credible. That does not have weight. The source does not have weight. And so they're most likely not going to accept that as credible evidence or competent evidence. The RVSR should consider the key elements listed below. I'm going to list those off for you in just a minute when evaluating the probative value and relative value of medical evidence, such as your diagnosis, your assessment, your prognosis, or the opinion on the ontology and the onset of your condition. So they're going to be looking at your physician's qualifications. They're going to look at, are they a doctor? Are they a physician's assistant? Are they your next door friend signing a name? They're going to look at that expertise and that specialty in that determination. So the Nexus letter that you would have, and I'm going to plug our Telemedica team as a preferred provider, they're going to provide that expertise, specialty, and experience that is related to the claim. So they're not going to have somebody who specializes in tinnitus to work on your back. They're going to have somebody who is credible and has that support of your back to support your back and has all that background, so that that signature itself, the qualifications, are one of the qualifications that are going to support your claim. The physician's knowledge of the relevant history. Did they review the medical evidence that was provided for them? And that is one of the things that are also listed on that evidence letter, that Nexus letter. They're going to do a review of your records, any evidence that you provide for them, the length of time that you've been in service with the length of time really that you've had your symptom, and has your physician been treating that? How long have you been treatment with your veteran? The context in which the medical evidence was created. So treatment or substantiation of the medical disability claim. So that treatment that you have gone under will also potentially be included in that Nexus letter. And then the reasoning employed by the physician. How did they come to that particular decision? What is the theory? Maybe the observation. Are they practiced? This is their expertise, clinical testing, subjective reports, and conjecture. They're going to be looking at all of those things, that reasoning that is behind that physician's decision. And then the degree of specificity and the degree of certainty. Again, that comes with the signature that is on that particular document. What is the language that they're presenting? Is it sure? Is it wishy-washy? Never. That document is going to support your connection. So Jeff, tell me a little bit about, if you could expand on some of the components that are in those Nexus letters.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate you breaking it down like that, because some of my veterans, I want to hold here for a second, like, why does it take so long? Why does the VA, why is it so long? Why did it take so, like, what's the process? Why is it more than 150 days? Well, this gives you a little snippet into the rationale, or at least the mental processes and thinking of the VA, or RSVR, and what they're doing. It's real time, multiple, how many hundreds of thousands of veterans. So real time, just want to say I'm grateful for at least the process and kind of break it down that way. To answer your question, what are, I would say, the four things that every Nexus letter needs?
Yeah.
Well, one, like we've been talking about, a discussion of supporting evidence, not he's sick, he can't sleep because they're ringing in the ears because he blew up a lot of things. That is all true of what I just stated for me, my own personal artillery career, 15 years. But like, as I'm talking to you now, tinnitus is going to go up. I have to come back and get some hearing aids finally. But to break down that statement, the provider should reference any medical, right, or personal record that they review that supports your claim, right? So preferred provider network, legit docs, right? Telemedica, they're going to review your medical record, right? When I go to my doctor for my back, he was like, "Hey, do you have anything for your back?" I said, "Yes, I do," and I pulled it out of my backpack. Kind of funny that I couldn't use my backpack when I was hobbled over like Quasimodo, but it is what it is. And then, so the discussion of that supporting evidence could even be, what is specific to your case, right? We say probative value, all these things. Do you have your service treatment records? Do you have current medical evidence after service, or it was 10 years after because your wife or your spouse told you to get or Brian Reese, excuse me, told you to get your butt to the doctor? So that needs to be in there as a discussion of that supporting evidence. And evidence based on rationale. This is important. Your provider must explain why. That's the most important line in any Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps, is why they believe an in-service event, injury, or disease caused your disability, right? So if it's a primary service connection, that's one, right? Secondary service connection, in my case, it's because I already had about head, shoulders, knees, and toes, like 13 things before I did a mental or lifestyle impact claim, right? Like, that's just the truth. So to have those first two components, the discussion within the body of that letter and evidence of based rationale. Well, I think because, and here's where I was talking about the Nexus opinion, right? Your provider's opinion that your disability was caused or made worse by your service should be expressed in terms of likelihood, if I can speak, excuse me. Typically, Nexus letters include language like what we talked about earlier. I'm going to begin with that, the 50% of certainty. I love seeing that. I saw two of my own documents, my friends. It says at least as likely as not. That's one of them, and I had another one that said more likely than not, greater than 50%. So at least as likely than not is 50%. Okay? Like you were talking about, tie goes to the runner if they have to figure that out with that 1%. But if the language of the evidence is what we're specifically talking about, let's start at 0. Is not due to, like 0. That is 0. Okay? Not likely due to, less than 50. Not likely due to, less than 50. You hear me? And I think I've said it twice, so we're good. At least as likely than not, equal to 50%. Okay? And then here we go. More likely. Do you hear more likely than not? That's greater than 50%. Okay? And is due to, 100%. Okay? So at the end of it, if you've seen Tommy Boy, my favorite movie of all time, Herbie Hancock, they got to put their John Hancock at the bottom of that list with their credentials, right? And of course, as you stated earlier, after the credentialing, the specialty, right? A specialty for sure. Now, with all that stated, the componency of the Nexus letter, What does it look like? How do you get that Nexus? Jayo, how do you get that?
My favorite subject. How can you get a Nexus? Number one, you can uh, get a Nexus from any medical provider. However, it really is critical to make sure that that provider is understanding all of the components that need to go in that letter to support you. Not just the medical language, but the research language and their expertise all needs to match up really fine. As we've said before, Jeff and I have both said our preferred provider with Telemedica under our elite program is Telemedica, and they do provide a Nexus letter. Now, keep in mind that a Nexus letter looks, uh, it actually looks like and contains whatever's in it, depends on who writes it. But when you're getting that Nexus letter, know what needs to be in those components. One doctor might provide a more thorough explanation about how your condition is connected to your service than another. One doctor might also say that your provide you more documentation for that evidence in the form of research in the background, or his expertise alone might be able to provide that credential. And that's okay. Any of these explanations is okay as long as they include those four things. A good Nexus letter needs to include. So what you're looking at and how to get a Nexus letter, you can that can really strengthen your claims. So I'm going to plug our elite service here with VA Claims Insider. As part of a member of our elite service, our program, you can also have contact with our preferred provider, Telemedica. They are medical experts providing medical Nexus letters that can review your records and see, number one, if your claim can be connected and benefit from a VA Nexus letter. So all of those things can come into play. Work with a coach, do your own studies. We do make it simple here at the elite program with VA Claims Insider. We would love to have you be part of that. So we're going to go into some Q&A now. Is that okay with you, Jeff? And some closing thoughts, and then we'll kind of recap the whole meeting on what we went over, and hope you guys have a great day. So let's go ahead and take some of those comments that are coming in. Do you want to start, Jeff, or I can start?
Hey, firm. Can you guys hear me? I've been having issues with my. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now. I'll go ahead and I'll start. We've got Mike. We've got Mike Putnam here. He says, I have a Nexus letter from Telemedica and from another private doctor for a secondary connection for a heart condition, and it got denied because the C&P examiner diagnosed and cited with the C&P examiner with way less experience than my doctor. Mike, this is an awesome question. And unfortunately, we do see this a lot in our elite program. We have to review those decision letters in detail and weigh that against that Nexus letter. Now, if you provided them with both Nexus letters, you want to make sure that one Nexus letter did not contradict the other, that they both really supported both of your condition in the same direction for the same reason. If there was any contradiction, that would kind of open the door for the rating or that denial that you got. However, one of the things that we're looking at when we're looking at reviewing for denial, specifically when you've got that Nexus support, and it's such a firm support from Telemedica and your private physician, both are credible documents, I would say. Haven't read them, but I would guess that they are. You want to make sure that you can contact or review the possibility of looking at a higher level review. A higher level review will basically have your claim reviewed by a more experienced rater. They'll look at all the evidence alone that was submitted and then make a redetermination. So that's one possible outlook for your particular claim. And if you are working with with a coach through here, please reach out to them and make sure that they're aware of that denial and can support you with additional education on different moves that you might be able to make. All right. Let's see. We've got
Really good question.
Awesome question. Really good. We see that a lot, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we do see that a lot.
I'm going to go back to when we kind of first began.
Okay.
I got here, John Yaskovitz. What is average time after C&P before you receive a rating? I always say this. It's always veteran dependent. I mean, I'm not even kidding, because I have people, let's just say last week, no kidding, individual said, hey, got it. They did Telemedica, preferred provider network, lifestyle impact, followed everything. This next week already, they have a C&P exam. The average wait time until the C&P exam is what, 149, 150 right now. I think we're sitting about 150 days. Now the time after that, remember, you have the RSVR, right? So to answer that question, there's multiple factors that affect it, right? So after the C&P exam, then there's time that doctor, if it's either at the VA or, for example, QTC, right? LHI, one of those third-party providers, they would then send that information into the VA, and then they have their time by law. I don't have it offhand. I would say about a month or two. I mean, that's at least what I've seen with my veterans after a C&P exam. Usually, in my opinion, my experience of the last 3.5 years that I've been here, VA Claims Insider, about 1 to 2 months. Hopefully that answers your question, John.
All right. Adam Rich, let's look at Adam Rich. He says, they denied my depression, so I am getting a Nexus letter from an outside psychiatrist. What percentage is Nexus letter approved after receiving a Nexus letter? So again, you're looking at veteran and the combination of who you're getting that Nexus letter from. You want to make sure that they are providing you with documentation to support according to the 38 CFR 31 symptoms of mental health. You want to make sure that they're supporting your behavioral impact on both your occupation and social environments. You want to make sure that they've got the language that's in there that's really going to support with additional research, because A is documented because of all of this research that is behind it. And reason B is documented because of all of this research behind it. And the documentation really does need to support your diagnosis. Sorry, couldn't come up with the word, diagnosis. And importantly, if this is the first time that you're submitting a claim for mental health, does it provide that service connection clearly and astutely? Did you have medical evidence to support? What medical evidence was reviewed? All of that needs to go into that Nexus letter to make sure that you've got a solid Nexus letter. And I would say, generally speaking, if you're submitting any claim with a Nexus letter from a credible representation, sorry, having trouble with words, you have, I think, what is it, a 95, 97% chance of approval than submitting a claim without that support. So there is a really high percentage in making that investment in yourself in getting that Nexus letter, because that's really what you're doing. You may be paying a company, but what you're doing is you're investing in yourself to be able to get the rating that you deserve. So that's kind of how we look at acquiring those Nexus letters. You've got to have it, then get it. Find a way to manage that expense in your life.
And if you are in need, Preferred Provider Network, Telemedic can do it for you. Because here's my thing. I've been doing this 3.5 years. I got lucky when I did my claim. I seriously got lucky, because I did my claim up until about my own like 2017, I think. And I was like, okay, I got to do mental health. And I got lucky when I did. I didn't know how lucky I was. I'm really grateful for that fact. So if it's a matter of content and all the things that we described throughout this period of instruction, or this, hey, does it have the credentials? Did the thorough review? Did they reference BVA or Board of Veterans Appeals? Like, you can see if other people had that certain condition. However, whatever it is, you can't go wrong with Telemedica for sure. I like this one. Max KZ. Hi, what if diagnosed? I like that, KZ. I would have diagnosed with rhinitis. And how do we service connected if we haven't been seeing a doctor in service? Okay, I love this answer because of the PACT Act. The PACT Act, I'm forever grateful for it, not just because I didn't serve overseas in the Middle East. I only went to the Republic of Georgia for like 5 months. But all my brothers and friends that served Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, yes. So rhinitis, let's talk about it really simply. Presumptive claim. Okay, can you prove on your DD-214 or other means of evidence something attached to your service? Because trust me, on my DD-214, it says that I was on the USS Bataan for 4 months, and I had to wait there at IPAC, and I was never there. So they fixed it, right? It happens. So as long as you can prove that you were there, first portion of the law, right? Presumption, to presume that you were there. And then I love the second part of this. If we didn't go to the doctor in service, well, what about now? Well, if you have a current diagnosis, because like Brian said, and that's actually one of the things what brought me to the company. He said, get your butt to the doctor. In one video, said it multiple times 3 years ago. So if you have a current diagnosis of the rhinitis right now, if you served in the Middle East in one of those areas, then, right, it's presumed, and that will be heavier weight. So to answer you don't have to be seen by a doctor in the service. It helps, it's great, but if it didn't happen, it's not the end all be all. So hopefully that answers your question for that one for sure.
Yay, yay. I have a question here that I really like too. It says, can you use a diagnosis from private doctors and use Nexus Letter to get service connected? So here's where remember we talked about that review of medical evidence. So absolutely. If you're working with an independent service, I believe am I going in the right direction? Let me read that question again. Can I use diagnosis from private doctor and use a Nexus Letter to get service connected? Yes, absolutely. That's part of the medical records that your doctor is going to review to be able to support in that Nexus Letter that service connection. So they have to use the diagnosis that's been given. You can support your you'll have to submit your medical records if you're using an independent service, such as our preferred provider, Telemedica. You'll submit your medical records to them for review, and we suggest sending them everything that you've got. Because if you pick and choose your medical evidence that you drip to your provider that you want to have write this Nexus Letter, you're only going to drip back to yourself maybe not the entirety of what you really are deserving. And so providing them the most amount of medical evidence that you can without overindulging. You don't need 20 years of medical evidence, but certainly 5 years of solid medical evidence, and don't hold back. All of that information will come through with that diagnosis that you have from your private doctor. You can get service connected with that Nexus Letter if it's substantiated, again, with the research that's provided behind that. Sometimes we find, at least I do, Jeff, I don't know about you, is that your service connection you think should be to this, and it turns out it should be over to something else. Accept the over to something else, because that is medically documented and will be medically supported. So yes, you have your diagnosis, but how they're or what they're going to service connected, leave that to the professionals. I always say that. Leave it to the professionals. I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but I can guess and I can give you a direction, but I'm going to leave it to the medical providers, even as a coach doing this for so many years. So always have that diagnosis, and it's one of the requirements of having that condition service connected.
No, as a U.S. Marine, I'm close to a doctor, but I don't have the credentials. Of course, I'm kidding.
Max, thank you so much. You've got great questions coming in. I appreciate that.
No, I love this topic because it is very specific, but it can open up so many more. I love that. Hey, I go to my private doctor, but he's scared of the VA. He's scared of the VA. He doesn't want to write anything.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. How you doing? Record review. Now, keep in mind with that record review, that's like a two-step process with Telemedica and the preferred provider network, right? One step further, because they have to do the conveyance and looking at all the evidence, take it in. I worked intelligence for about a year, and it hurt my brain. It's an overload of information, and they do very well, and they disseminate it through, and they do a great job. And after we need this information, or no, we can provide these services, right? Surfaces and gaps kind of thinking. But no, great questions. Here's one. USMC Farrell, Semper Fi. I like it. Submitted my claims for sleep apnea. Just get that thumb up there. And left hip pain Monday, 8/19, and I already have CMP this 31st.
Wow.
I like it. That's
Me
what
too.
I'm talking about.
Woohoo!
Fire for effect. I submitted an enhanced Nexus for sleep apnea. Enhanced meaning more than one body part.
Correct.
In this case. Okay, that's what that means for all of us here, even me being the layman. And a Nexus Letter from Telemedica, but it seems their LSG, I got to look at who is LSG, could be the preferred provider, having me to come in for a DBQ, did both submittals. What should I know about this DBQ appointment? Well, as JL said earlier, and as I always say, you got two words coming to evidence: corroboration and criticism. Okay, when I was a cop up in Oklahoma, I always wanted the evidence to corroborate. So what they're doing for this is they're just, all right, you've got the information from Telemedica, your information, and now they're, as the as the VA, that's what they do to check your evidence. They're going to do the side by side, right? That's what they're checking. So they're checking the evidence, and then if you're going in for it, that's great, because what they'll do is they'll just ask you clarifying questions, as JL said earlier, about the impairment and how the VA uses it. It's that occupational, the social impairment, right? So how does the diagnostic information, how does that evidence that you submitted work up against their doctors? And then it goes on throughout the process. So what I would say is, number one, if you have a coach, get with your coach and make sure you prepare a back brief and tell them all that you have us today. Thank you for sharing, and make sure you develop that strategy and how you deal with it. That good preparation call for sure.
One of the things that you can also do is you can log into the va.gov and research the DBQ for sleep apnea, pull it up, and know exactly the questions that they're going to ask you, exactly what they're going to review. Leave no guessing game. Know exactly what's on your Nexus letter that was written for you. Sometimes I have veterans that go into their appointments with not having read that Nexus letter, just submitted the claim, which is not a good thing to do. So make sure that if you do have a Nexus letter to support your claim, that you know what's on it, that you've read it, and you're able to basically kind of go in and defend it in a way. And pulling up that DBQ, any specific DBQ that you have a CMP examination coming up for, you can pull that directly from the va.gov website. Just search DBQ. Good topic. Awesome topic. Let's see what else we've got here. How to file an intent to file. If you've got a pen and paper, super simple. The best and easiest way to do is to call the VA and register an intent to file. Now that phone number is 1-800-827-1000. And you want to register an intent to file, but oftentimes what we find veterans do is that they will put in a condition that they want to file, or a symptom that they want to file, a diagnosis that they're hoping to be able to file a claim for. Our recommendation is leave that open and blank. You don't have to have that condition filled in for that intent to file to be active. And you can use that intent to file then to submit any claim. And if you're working with one of our elite coaches, they're going to make strategy in a direction that may not have been in the original direction that you had submitted that intent to file. So leave the symptom open. Don't fill it in. Just say, I'd like to register an intent to file. Something like, maybe I'm developing my claim with medical evidence. I'm not sure yet, if they push you on it. So you can let that go with that, and then go back and verify that you have it. You should get some sort of communication from the VA that you do have an intent to file effective a specific day. And I hope that answers your question. Great question. That's where everybody begins. I love that place.
Memorize the number. You will love that number. I've memorized it. And even if you are having if you have a I'll answer this question here. If you're 100% P&T, or even if you're 80, 70, 60, whatever part or portion of the process you are, have that intent to file open. I have an intent to file open every year, even though I'm 100% P&T. It's just great practice to have. It says here by Seth Evans, and I appreciate you, JL. Great topic today. Great teaching with you. Seth Evans, is a Nexus letter needed for a service-connected disability rated at 0% to get an increased claim? As my grandfather used to say, God rest his soul, he was Air Force 20 years. He'd say, if you want to, that means if you want to, colloquially, if what is needed for an increased claim is evidence. So if a Nexus letter or anything, like if you've got a piece of paper, so you're not even just a specific paper saying this condition has gotten worse or whatever, like if you have evidence, like I'm 0% for, let's just say, diabetes. I'm 0% for diabetes or 0% for hearing loss. But I've 30 years been married, but my wife keeps telling me that she, like, from the distance, she can't hear me. This is true. I'm not making this up. Like, now, has it gotten worse? Well, that's anecdotal information. But then if you go to the doctor, get your butt to the doctor, you take the audiology test, you take the blood test, you take all these things, and you start building your case. Yeah, the Nexus letter, hey, you might need a record review. Go to Telemedica and our preferred provider network. Absolutely. If you go to your preferred provider and you're going with frequency, great. You have evidence. You need to show an aggravation is what happens. That's what it is. You have to show an aggravation. Jael, any saved rounds on that?
I would tend to agree because when you're looking at any claim, honestly, medical evidence is what's going to support your claim. You'll have to have some sort of documentation. It's medical evidence, whether it's a doctor's statement that's going to make that connection for you or that increase. And it really does depend on what your service connected disability is. Service connected disabilities don't need to have anything but a medical treatment plan and documented evidence that it has gotten worse to be able to move forward. Others do require a little bit more documentation. And one of those claims, I'm going to go into one of our questions from Joey Hefner that kind of ties all of this in together. He got denied previously for major depression. He got an IMO from Telemedica. Will they be able to rate my claim just based off my IMO? Probably not. You do have to have that compensation and pension exam does need to be able to have that interview, so to speak, between you and the VA, whether that's through one of their contractors. But that Telemedica report really does help show the VA what your conditions are, what your behavioral connection is, what your sentinel event is, and all of that documentation that goes in to support it is all presented in that IMO document that you got from Telemedica. But having that document alone, not without a compensation and pension exam. If you go into your medical evidence and you are submitting a claim for the first time for mental health and you have no medical history, it really depends on your service, what you did in service, how well you're able to advocate for yourself in making that service connection. So here it comes again. Know what's on your Nexus letter and be able to speak, number one, to your service connection, and then number two, to your symptoms. I know we got into a little bit of compensation and pension exam here, education, but it is pertinent to your claim. So, and that's going to be true with any claim, whether it's an increase from 0, an increase from 50%. You can also, have those claims that are out there. Medical evidence is needed to help document, and whether that medical evidence comes in the form of a Telemedica independent medical opinion or treatment from your doctor, either can substantiate those increases. I hope we answered your questions. And we've got time for a couple more, I think. Jeff, what do you think?
We do. No, we
Awesome.
do. That's great. That was a great question. I've had one individual. It's possible to have, you don't have to go to a CMP, but that's like the stars and the planets aligning. I had one individual. I'm serious. I've had one individual. And so but they also had gone previous many times and had been denied. So like you're saying, how long have you been building your case? Multiple factors go into it for sure. But that was a great stream of questions. I'll go here. Stephen Cradle, I'm waiting for a review. I was denied sleep apnea. I received a Nexus to secondary to PTSD. Letter covers medical conditions and legal. Great. If you've got the document from Telemedica, then you should be ready. Just make sure, if you're working with your coach, get that thing ready to go. The evidence from Telemedica, they support it. And those 4 things that we said that are necessary, trust me, they do a very good job to include that and then some. They do a very thorough job. All right.
So we've got Leo Wade here, who's got a very common question that I get among my veterans as well when I'm working with them. I'm rated at 90% and is trying to do the increase to 100% based on unable to work due to my service-connected disability. Do I have a chance to be increased on this basis? That actually is there's 2 different ways that you can attain that 100% permanent and total, or you can get a 100% rating with a TDIU claim, which is that temporary disability. I forget what the I stands for. Jeff, help me out.
It's totally disabled individual unemployability. Yeah.
Yep. So they'll pay you at 100%. There is a lot of qualification that go into that. I do believe that our preferred provider, Telemedica, can provide some direction in that. So you can reach out to our elite program and our coaches to see if that's possible. And it is definitely possible to get that 100%. Now, if you're really close, a review of your current disabilities and a strategy that a coach could build might actually help you not only have that 100% rating, which is what TDIU will provide you, but 100% permanent and total rating might be within your reach as well. And the difference between TDIU and 100% permanent and total disability are astronomical. The benefits that are available for you under a P&T rating versus a TDIU, the difference is just incredible. So if you're that close, I would recommend get with our program. You won't pay anything if you don't win. See if this is something that we can help you move on, provide that strategy, that education, and the documentation and medical evidence to help you take that leap from that 100% to that, from that 90% to that 100% P and T, which is permanent and total. But there's also the option of going with TDIU if for some reason that P and T is not available to you. So those are the two different options that you would be able to face with the direction that you're currently working with and your inability to work at this time.
Great explanation.
Thank you. All right, let's see what else we've got here. A couple more questions.
Perfect. I'm trying to read them.
Sergio Vargas, how do you get the VA to give you a diagnosis when you already have medicine and documentation on your medical records that you have that medical problem, but they don't put a diagnosis? This is such a great question.
Mhm.
So it's you have a diagnosis in essence in the treatment and the symptomology. So if they're treating you for, let's use the random headaches, but they've never
Mhm.
really said you have headaches, or they've not given you a diagnosis of headaches, that long-term treatment plan, number one, can bring that diagnosis to the VA, not really a diagnosis, but can bring that series of symptoms and that record of history with a Nexus letter to be able to get the new rating that you deserve for the headaches, whatever they are. It's always best to try and get a diagnosis for whatever your head, for instance, headaches. Are they migraine headaches? Are they cluster headaches? Are they whatever headaches? Tension headaches, exactly. But if your doctor is kind of not doing that, one of the ways that you can connect with the VA to make sure that your symptoms are being heard, because a lot of times your symptoms are not recorded with the VA either, is to use secure messaging at va.gov. And you can just search it on the internet, va.gov, secure messaging. It'll provide you with a link directly when you sign in directly to your account and directly contact with your VA doctors. You can put in, mention what your symptoms are. These are my symptoms. Is there anything else we can do? The medicine isn't working, whatever that dialogue happens to be. And then why not just ask them, do I have a diagnosis for my headaches? Somebody has to respond to you. And if they don't, call them and get back into that secure messaging and be persistent. If you don't have a diagnosis, let's again use that headaches, for instance. There are some services that our preferred provider can provide for you under their umbrella under Telemedica that do have some diagnostic ability. So again, if you're not part of our elite program, please come in, sign up with a coach, sign up with Jeff, sign up with me. We would love to see you guys, all your names on our board soon. And let us be able to really have that conversation intimately with you, look over what you've got going and really what is the best direction and what is the support that you need to be able to, one, if you need a diagnosis, how to go about getting that, or maybe you don't even need that diagnosis and you can proceed with your claim as it is. Great question, Sergio. Great question.
Perfect. No, I was reading through some of the questions.
Yep, me too. Me too here.
Sorry.
So here's one from Fred Hawkins. He has a case before a VBA judge, and he's been waiting for a decision for over 2 years. That's very common, number one. I have seen decisions wait for 7 years. If you've already invested, I'm going to stop right there just for a minute. If you have that claim that's in the background and you want to have that go ahead and go through that whole process, after a certain period of time, you don't want to remove it from that VBA consideration. And the reason being is because there is the potential building for that back claim. Now, the second part of your question, I want to file a new claim and my time is about to run out. What would be your thoughts? Should I go ahead and file a new claim or wait until I hear from the VBA judge? My time is running out on your intent to file. That's what he's talking about. My time is running out on to be able to file a new claim. Now, if you're talking about you're running into that 365 day where you need to refile a supplemental, that you need to do right away. However, that intent to file, if it's related to the claim that you have or if it's not related to the claim, you can still file a claim, whether it's secondary to that. If it was denied, then you can't. If you're waiting for an increase or for a back date to be changed, but you do have a service rating for that particular disability, you can request an increase without having to interfere with that VBA decision. You can file a supplemental claim for a new condition that is related to a service-connected condition. So absolutely, if you want to get with one of our judges, coaches who have no judgment, by the way. Yeah, we want to make sure that you can hear what strategy might be the best for you as you're filing that new claim. And we've run out of time, Jeff. I can't believe we've actually run out of time. We've got just a minute. We want to make sure that if you are interested in working with us or working with our preferred provider, Telemedica, we want to hear from you. You can either do a discovery call or sign up with either Jeff or myself, and we'll bring you into our program, go through what strategy, education, and medical evidence means, and get you the rating you deserve. Not get it for you, but help you develop that rating. So thank you all for being part of us today. Jeff, it's been a pleasure serving with you today.
Semper Fi, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.